Boom, boom, boom. Welcome to the first episode of 708 Bench Mob Podcast. My name is Peter Augustiniak. I have Noah and Lucas Birchman with me. This podcast, we're going to just kind of take you guys through every week in NCAA men's basketball as well as the NBA. Some of the topics we're going to cover this week, at least on the inaugural episode, will be, the inconsistency of the Golden State Warriors. We've got Lonzo Ball. How committed really is he to the Bulls? Ronnie James, just released his top three. Where's he going to commit? Early player of the year candidates, which I think is a big topic to talk about. We've got Lenardi's bracketology, which is always, people always have their arguments with that. And then to finish off the episode, we're going to have our locks and underdogs of the week for NBA as well as NCAA men's basketball. So yeah, let's jump right into the podcast. Our first topic we got is the Warriors. Are they in trouble? They're coming off being defending NBA champions, not NCAA, but NBA champions. And, they lost to the Celtics in OT recently with their full healthy roster. And then, the next week, they go beat the Cavs with Jordan Poole dropping 32 without Wiggins, Clay, Curry, Draymond. So they're fighting for a play-in spot in the West. They cannot win on the road. I think they have the worst record in the NBA when it comes to road games. So that I just think that there's a lot to talk about there. So yeah, Lucas, you got anything to add kind of to that?
Yeah, I mean, they're towards the bottom. I mean, let's be frank. 10 teams make the play-in, or 10 teams make the playoffs,
They
or
are
they're
10.
playing. And they're 10 out of 14 or 15 are in each conference. So
Yeah,
they're 10.
15.
So that they're towards the bottom of the West. And they won the title last year, obviously, and they are towards the bottom of the West. And I mean, Poole's playing. You could look at the number and say Jordan Poole is averaging 21 points or how many ever assists, but he's shooting 43% and he has nearly 4 turnovers a game. So at what point are you kind of like, obviously it's helping the team anytime you contribute 21 points, but you got to shoot better than 40% and you cannot turn the ball over 4 times being a 6-man or an off-ball guard when Curry's playing. Health is also a very big issue. They've been banged up all year, so I think that plays a role too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's important to note the age of these players and how they might not be as durable as they have proven to be in the past. Obviously, Clay has a lengthy injury history. Curry's been banged up all year. Draymond, you can argue that he's getting older, and all these guys are, other than Steph, are really just kind of regressing. I mean, mainly Clay and Draymond, but I think the most fascinating thing when it comes to it is, like you said, I mean, Jordan Poole, like the idea that the Warriors have built this dynasty that competes for championships every year while adding super young talent like Poole, Kuminga, and
Wiggins.
I mean, you could talk about Wiseman. But he really hasn't lived up to the hype thus far in his career. But the thing that concerns me, or not really concerns me, but makes me think, is it's going to be interesting to see how the Warriors front office handles this. Do they see this as kind of the championship window closing? I feel like it's hard to do that when you won last year. You are the defending champs. And I feel like there are some teams in the NBA that have these older superstars that, I mean, it's questionable what these front offices are going to do because they're in some really tough spots.
Yeah, I think that James Wiseman is a very interesting person. Came in top 3 pick. You look at what he did in college. I mean, he barely played at Memphis. So I just think that, I part of me thinks that the Warriors haven't really given him an opportunity to kind of grow through the growing pains of being a young center in the league. And I think that a lot of people are already out on Wiseman, and that if you look at Warriors trades, he is the main trade piece, which I can agree with. But at the same time, do the Warriors, they're already old. Do they need to stick with their young guys and be like, we might have to go through some of the growing pains? And the other young guy is, yeah, he's playing in Italy right now, but you look at Nico Mannion and what he's done in Italy. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Warriors still hold his rights when he went and played overseas. And I think he's
Is he
talking about coming.
healthy?
Yeah, no, he's playing really well in Italy.
Yeah.
He had that huge weight issue where he just could not keep weight on when he was playing here, but he's gone over to Italy, played well. He played well for the Italian national team. And I know he's looking to make a return to the NBA. Is that someone that the Warriors look at? Or do they look to trade his rights to another team in a trade involving him and Wiseman? Or do they look and, Curry only has a couple years. I'd give him probably 3 or 4 years left. He's still a great shooter, but he the injuries are starting to catch up to him. Same thing with Clay. When Charles Barkley said that Clay is not the same player, I know that angered Clay a lot because Clay has had some really bad injuries, but at the same time,
Clay just can't back that up on the court. Like whether you like Clay or not, he has not been the same player.
yeah,
and I think the only consistent piece from a few years ago to last year was Steph, and I think Steph is still at the top of his game, best point guard in the league. And
arguably one
the
of the
injuries
best.
are concerning. He's had the ankle thing. He missed some time with shoulder.
Yep.
But I think as long as they have Steph on that team's going to be in the playoff mix. But I mean, if they don't get it together quickly or before the All-Star break or the trade deadline, whatever that front office does is going to.
I think it should be interesting. I think that you're
important.
probably going to see a trade at the deadline that involves some combination of like Wiseman, Kuminga, Moses Moody, some sort of, because I know that there's a lot of teams that are high on Moses Moody. The Warriors obviously clearly are not, since he's been in the G League practically his whole career.
I mean, that's the problem when you get these young guys with
Yeah.
that talent drafted to contending teams. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the Warriors drafted these young guys and they just haven't played because they have these uber talented rosters who now they're just really starting to struggle with injuries.
Yeah.
I would really compare them to the Bulls.
They're very similar. Standing wise, they're similar.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the fact that both teams have superstars. You've got Curry, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and then you look at the Bulls and they've got DeMar, Zach LaVine, Vucevic, and when he's healthy, Lonzo Ball. I mean, that's a big four that when they're healthy, the Bulls can look at last year. They competed until Lonzo went out. They were at one point the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, which looking at their roster now, you would never even think about. But I think that somebody like Lonzo Ball really he completely changes the Bulls offense. I mean, last year,
and the defense.
Yeah, last year
defensive
with him,
metrics are crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, and last year with him on the floor, the Bulls were 22-13. Lonzo was averaging 13, 5, and 5 during that stretch, and just his ability to play make and get guys like DeMar and LaVine open. Vucevic was playing better because Lonzo seems to be the only one who actually consistently gets Vucevic post touches, which when you have a back to the basket big like Vucevic, you have to get him post touches because he's again one of the few back to the basket bigs left in the NBA. He's starting to get more consistent with his mid-range and outside shooting, but he's still he'll body you down in the paint. He's a bigger guy. And I just think that
post a lot more. That guy's
and
down there.
I just think that Lonzo's a huge part of the Bulls because you can't expect somebody like Alex Caruso, who's a defensive specialist with the ability to knock down an occasional three. You cannot expect somebody like Alex Caruso to go and run your offense.
And I still think that's even a lot of weight to put on Ayo's shoulders. I mean, Lonzo is a fantastic playmaker, and the Bulls were elite in transition when Lonzo was healthy and obviously defensively. And that's one of the things. I mean, you can talk about how Ayo's regressed, but I think that's mainly from a shooting standpoint. And that was kind of the knock on him when he came into the league was that, I mean, he could see the court, he can play making, get to the rim. He has defensive potential. But that shot has been inconsistent, and shots he was hitting last year, it seems like they're not falling this year.
I don't know if that's. I mean, I feel like you look at a lot of guys, except for like the top. I mean, he's a middle second round pick. He's going to have his
Yeah.
sophomore struggles, but you can see that.
And I mean, he's still a productive player. I
You
just want
look
to put
you
that
look
out
at his good, yeah, exactly. And you look at his good games, the talent's there. Now you just look for him to, as he continues to grow on that team, you look for him to build that consistency. It's kind of similar to Patrick Williams. Did the Patrick Williams go too high to the Bulls? In my opinion, for what he's done now, I don't think so. I really don't, because you look at what he brings to the floor defensively, his game is constantly improving.
Oh, completely. I completely agree.
He's
He
in
just
a
needs to be more
similar,
aggressive.
yeah, he's in a
I mean,
similar
you can-
position to what Io is right now.
And I mean, you could definitely talk. I think Pat Will has really good intangibles. I mean, he's already a good defender, but he's starting to really pick it up. And I think staying patient with him seems like it might pay off, just because he's been shooting the ball remarkably well this year.
Yeah.
And he's proven that you can't leave him and focus all of your attention on DeMar and Zach. And I think that gives the Bulls a huge, I mean, that's big for the Bulls, especially
Yeah.
with Lonzo out. Gives them another option that can space the floor. And I also think, I mean, he's also very athletic, but I think he's been a huge part of this recent win streak. And the Bulls are trending upwards, I would say.
Yeah.
And just won 3 games in a row. One in Paris against the Pistons, just beat Atlanta, who's a playoff team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for me,
I think the Bulls are really turning it up.
I do want to say one thing. When Lonzo is out, the offense is completely different. Just the offense it's more stagnant. It's just Zach and DeMar who are good shooters and good. They score the ball at an extremely high level. But when Lonzo's in the game, you see more set plays, you see more off-ball movement.
Yeah.
I think that's the key to winning.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Warriors do it all the time. When the Warriors, like the way Curry moves off ball is insane. Like you need to move off ball to win games. And I think when Lonzo's in the lineup, the Bulls do a really good job of that.
Yeah, I think
And
the Bulls' big issue is the fact that without a true point guard, whether it's Lonzo, whether it's somebody else, they're a stagnant isolation-based offense. And in today's NBA, that just doesn't work. And my other issue with Lonzo is the fact that look at Paris. I mean, yeah, the win over the Pistons is great, but it's the Detroit Pistons. I mean,
You should be winning it.
yeah,
but that's been the issue with the Bulls the whole year. Is you look what they did last year, and the whole knock on them was, they're number 1 in the East, but they can't beat the contending teams like the Celtics, the Heat, the Sixers, the Nets. I mean, it's completely different this year.
Yeah, now they beat.
You're not beating the teams like the Pistons and the Rockets or the Thunder, but you're going out and beating teams like the Celtics 3 out of 4 times in a year, and then you're beating Philly and Philadelphia, and then you're beating Miami, and you're snapping 12-game win streaks by the Nets when Katie and Kyrie were healthy at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
the Bulls are a very inconsistent basketball team, but they've shown flashes.
Yeah, I think that, but back to Lonzo, I think my biggest issue with Lonzo Ball is, and this has been a knock on the entire Ball family their whole lives, is the outside distractions that they bring to a basketball team. Lonzo brings a lot of media distractions to the basketball team. When you look, when the Bulls went, for example, when the Bulls went to Paris, yeah, they played a basketball game and they beat the Pistons. But if you looked at what was like on Bulls Twitter, other than like Daniel Greenberg and like the actual Chicago Bulls, but Bulls like fan Twitter, it wasn't about the Bulls win. It wasn't about, the great play by DeMar or Levine, or it was about the fact that Lonzo was there and that Lonzo was wearing Crocs in the team photo in front of the Eiffel Tower. Because we see Lonzo maybe once a week. Let's say the Bulls play 4 home games in a week. You'll see him once on the sidelines.
I think he was there yesterday.
Yeah. I think you can argue. I think as he begins to progress in his rehab, you'll see him more on the sideline and be with the team. But you can argue about it just the way like you said about the whole Ball family. It didn't. high school players being in the public eye didn't start with Lonzo, but it completely escalated with him. He was the guy throughout his high school years and his college years too, in his college year.
Yeah.
I think that so you could talk about that. I think he's a good teammate, but I just think you can't move on from him because what he does on the floor is unmatched.
Yeah.
Great
And
defender, great facilitator.
yeah, and I'm not saying that you move on from Lonzo Ball. I'm just saying at what point, and it goes back to that Instagram post of him dunking. Was that really unnecessary? Like,
Yeah, the dunk didn't even look good.
it
Like
wasn't
he was like
necessary.
hobbling into
My
it.
issue is it wasn't necessary to post,
I don't know what
and
that was
then
for.
that again brings the distraction of then all the media starts talking about what the Bulls is Lonzo Ball, Lonzo Ball, Lonzo Ball. At what point do the Bulls just decide, okay, we're gonna stick with Lonzo? Obviously, you can't just get rid of a guy like that. But at one point, do you just decide, okay, we're not gonna contend for a title. He's not gonna come back and play this year, and you just move on with the rest of your team, let him rehab, and then he comes back next year. Because I think if you just at the end of the day, if the front office just does that, I think it takes away a lot of the media distractions from the Bulls, because there's nothing to talk about anymore when it's just, okay, Lonzo's out for the year, and that's that.
Yeah.
And I think an important thing to note is that these guys are professional athletes, and if they're getting distracted by the media, especially vets like Vooch, DeMar, and Zach, if they're getting distracted by media talking about Lonzo, then the Bulls have bigger issues on their hands. I think they just need to accept the fact that Lonzo's hurt. He hurt pretty badly and just can't seem to recover. I'm not even mad at Lonzo about that. But
No,
I mean, it's an unfortunate situation because you see how different of a team they are when he's on the court. But I don't think Lonzo's
completely different.
really doing anything wrong at this point. And I think it's important that we just try to focus on next year and kind of just do what you can do with the roster this year. But I think it would be a mistake to try to trade for someone at the trade deadline and act like they're going to turn the thing around.
No, and I agree with you. I think by no means are the Bulls a buying team at the deadline. They don't have the assets to be a buying team at the deadline. I mean, we most likely
the assets to be a selling team either.
No, we have no assets is the issue. We're in a holding pattern.
Well, I mean, we are in a holding pattern. And I think if AK said that we're going to come out and guys are on a trade block, Caruso's on a trade block, you can get value for Caruso.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Bulls, I think the whole thing with AK's regime and Eversley has been consistency. You get a group of guys like the Celtics did. I think that's kind of what they're trying to mirror off of. You get DeMar and Zach and Vooch and Lonzo, obviously when he's healthy, to play together and create like a culture and some sort of consistency. So when they've been playing together for the third and fourth year, if they bring DeMar back, which I hope they do, but if they bring those guys back for more and more years, then it will lead to a change in the culture. And then, but I mean, these guys are getting older. So, I mean, you can argue that point too.
Yeah, I agree with everything we said. I think that Lonzo's a needed piece for this team to win. We just look at the record. It's that simple. When Lonzo plays, the record's good. When he doesn't, we're mid.
Yeah, we're a mediocre.
So,
we're a mediocre team in the NBA without Lonzo Ball. And I just think that as Bulls fans, we all just need to accept the fact that we're going to be a mediocre team this year. You just look for young guys to grow like P. Will and maybe this is the time where at post trade deadline, if we're still potentially fighting with a playoff spot, maybe not. But if we're not in a position to make the playoffs, I think maybe post All-Star break is time for Dalen Terry to get some playing time, because right now,
at least.
Right now there's no plan.
And realistically, I mean, the goal of a team with, I'll say, 3 superstars, the goal of this team is not to make a play-in tournament.
No.
You saw what they were last year before Lonzo got hurt, and I think that's the goal. I mean, it's top 4 seed, top 5 seed in the East. and a really competitive East, obviously. But those are what the expectations should be. And making a play-in tournament does absolutely nothing for me.
No,
Yeah,
and
I
it
agree.
doesn't do. There's no point to making a play-in tournament. And this
No.
is my issue with teams that get excited about. There is no making a play-in tournament is not a win for me. A win for me is you either make the playoffs or you are not in the play-in tournament and you accept the fact that you just didn't have a good season and you go into the offseason and look at what you need to fix. Going into a play-in tournament puts you in such a tough spot because it's, we were almost right there, but what do we do to fix that?
Get put in the lottery.
You
Yeah.
have zero chance of competing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, a team's goal is not to make the playoffs. A team's goal is to win a championship.
Yeah, every
that
team,
simple.
every
So when
team,
you-
every year,
when you're
unless
in the
you're tanking,
play-in, even if you advance to get to the actual playoff format, you're not going to win a title because we're not.
No.
If the Bulls were to advance, we're not going to beat the Nets. We're not going to beat the Celtics in a 4-game series. We can beat them, but we're not going to beat them in a 7-game series. So
yeah, no. And I just think that at this point, you kind of have to just move on. And yeah, I just think that Lonzo, we need to just shut, even if there's a chance he comes back in like
There's no
April,
point.
there's no point. You just shut him down for the rest of the year. You let him go rehab, which
Hopefully you have him back next year for his final 2 years of his contract.
yeah,
if he's not back next year, then there's something seriously wrong with that injury.
Then the conversations need to be had.
Yeah, but
then the
I-
moving on
potentially
from
blowing it up.
that's when the moving on from starts.
Yeah.
To heat up, but not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
no, I think for now the Bulls just kind of need to play their young guys and let their young guys get some experience and see what you have going into the offseason. See what holes you need. Realistically, I think that if we get a healthy Lonzo Ball back, we just need somebody to score.
We're right back to, and Kobe's been great.
Yeah.
Lately. I mean,
If
he's
Kobe
proven
stays,
himself to be a way better defender.
Consistent,
And
then
then when you
have
get Javonte Green back,
you
let's
have-
hope that
yeah.
Javonte Green,
you
that
have
his injury does not turn into what Lonzo's has.
if you get Javonte Green back, and Lonzo, your bench becomes Kobe White, Javonte Green, and Io.
Yeah, that's a decent bench.
I think
That's a
that
bench
plays.
can-
And
I
then
think
you
that
keep
plays.
you
You have a
Drummond.
good.
You've got Drummond as your
I don't
bench
have a
big.
problem with Drummond at
No,
all. I kind of
absolutely
like him.
not. No, I like him. And then
And you can see they obviously game plan very differently. Like he does not play against teams that they consider to play faster or small ball lineups.
yeah,
I just
think
don't
that
understand. Like
they're 10, and I think they need to run a 10-man rotation next year. And if everyone's healthy, that 10 spot becomes, is it Dalen Terry? Is it DJJ? Who does that 10th spot go to?
DJJ's been great.
Yeah, I don't know how this is the issue is if the Bulls are healthy, there's a lot of guys that need to get playing time, and there's just not enough minutes in a 48-minute game. But
it's
yeah,
probably-
like you said, it is a great problem to have. But I think that NBA, I just think overall the NBA it's just been a very interesting year. I mean, you got the absolute crap teams like the Rockets who are on a 14-game losing streak going into tonight.
Yeah, they're bad.
They're
They
terrible.
are bad.
And
Poorly
I
coached.
what-
Players
just-
don't get along with each other.
no, and you look at Jalen Green and it's just the
I think he
complete
just scored 40. Like he might have just scored like 42 last night.
yeah, but
But
the
before
over
that, I mean,
he's
he's terrible.
the overall regression from last season to this season is just it's wild. Like it's wild, the regression.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
he
I agree.
can't shoot consistently,
Yeah,
at
no.
least. He is
Definitely an issue.
a slasher, and the issue is Kevin Porter Jr. has become more and more inconsistent. Jabari Smith is not doing what everyone thought he was going to do this year. And
Yeah.
I just
6'10" Bertans.
yeah, I mean, and you look
Shout
at like
out,
what
right?
Victor Wembanyama said, and he was like, I don't like the idea of tanking. And I was like, dude, you're gonna play for a team that tanked. I mean, You're going to play for a
Yeah,
team
that
that
is pretty-
tanked, and you're the only big in this class. That you look at
Yeah,
this, you look at
that's
this
true.
draft class, and other than Victor Wembanyama and then Brandon Miller and Cam Whitmore, it's
And
guard
those
heavy.
are hybrid bigs.
And
Those
those-
aren't true bigs.
Those
No,
are forwards. Those are 3s and 4s.
But
I would
that's
argue-
the way. That's the way of the league. That's just how it's been going. You look at guys like Bronny, who they're guard like in that class. It's all guards. It's literally all guards because that's where the highlight plays. You're not getting any Instagram or Twitter videos from being a back to the basket big. It's just not how it is.
You look at somebody like Bronny, who just recently released his top 3, although I do know that even though that is the top 3 that he released, that his recruitment is going to stay open. I'm not really sure where
Yeah,
else
that's what
I don't know.
Tipton said, but
I don't really know
LeBron,
where.
he can call anywhere and get Bronny a scholarship. So
Yeah,
I guess we just
I
wait and
saw
see.
that from LeBron this morning. Which, see,
That's
this
gotta
is
be
my
patronizing.
this is
It
why
has to be.
this is my issue with LeBron is he thinks that like a college coach like John Shire is going to care what LeBron has to say. Their job, and I just use Duke as an
Their
example.
job is to win basketball games.
I use Duke as an example because that was one of Bronny's first offers. But
Well, you got to appease boosters. Let's not forget who these guys' contracts
well,
are being funded by.
and I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think at the same time, at the end of the day, their job is to win basketball games. And why waste a scholarship at Duke on a guy like Bronny who's going to get limited, if any, playing time? I mean, look at the recruiting class that they have coming in. And the recruiting class from last year, how guard
That's why
heavy it is.
I think the teams in his top 3 are better options for him. And I really do think that Oregon is the front runner right now, just because to me, obviously the relationship with Nike and the Nike headquarters super important to LeBron, and Bronny's already signed the Nike NIL deal. But I think what is also really important is the fact that you get on the court as a freshman. I mean, Bronny's a high level recruit.
He's a top
the
40 player in the class.
I don't even think it's just because it's LeBron's son. I think he's actually could be a valuable college basketball player.
I mean,
but I do think that he needs to find the right place for him. And I think Oregon just offers the fastest route to playing time.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bronny's a great player, and obviously added pressure by his dad. Maybe his ranking is a couple spots too high because his name is LeBron James Jr. But the intangibles are there. He 6'3", 190. That is a college level body. Like, that is a college level body. Good defender, good playmaker. But there's a reason you don't see any Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, the Blue Bloods. There's a reason they're not in his top 3. It's not a quick way for him to, like Noah said, just move forward with his career. And I think Oregon, I think USC are really good for that opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, well, first of all, Kansas, I mean, was never going to be in the mix. They're an Adidas school, so that, and I think,
I mean, people may think that's that's an overreaction, but genuinely, when it comes to these brand deals, it is that important.
And you look at
your LeBron James' son, who is the face of Nike. When LeBron is the face of Nike, playing for an Adidas school is legitimately out of the question, and it really reduces, obviously, a lot of Nike schools, but it really does reduce some options that people thought Bronny would look into, like Kansas,
school like
just
Memphis.
Because they're an Adidas school. Yeah, even Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the NIL with Nike and Adidas and what, you look at a guy like DJ Wagner. I mean, Louisville hired his dad, and then he signed.
It's crazy out there.
He signed the NIL deal with Drake's sub brand of Nike, and as soon as he did that, it was like 2 weeks later that he committed to Kentucky because Louisville was an Adidas school, and he's not allowed to wear Louisville like Adidas products. So
NIL is
I
everything. It's all money now.
It is serious.
And I'm not knocking NIL.
It's that important in the pros. It's that important in the pros, and it's that important in college. It's as important in college. When you are associated with one brand, you are not going to another brand.
Yeah, I'm not knocking NIL.
You can't be a Nike athlete and go to Kansas. It's just not how it works.
Speaking of that, why I find the Mikey Williams Memphis commitment so interesting.
He
Because
just followed JJ Taylor. They're like best friends now.
but you look at it, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mikey Williams is a Puma athlete. I think he has a Puma NIL deal, and clearly Memphis is not a Puma school. So I think that
There aren't many of those.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that there's a single Puma school in the country. But I just think that commitment was interesting. But going back to Bronny, I agree with you on the fact that I think Oregon you look at the top three. He's got USC, Oregon, Ohio State. USC, there's a lot of people who want to crystal ball him, or not USC, sorry. Ohio State. There's a lot of people that want to crystal ball him to Ohio State. You know, it's probably where LeBron would have gone had he gone to college. It's the only official visit that he's taken. But you look at like the guys that Ohio State has on their roster, they have like combo guards that will come back next year, 2 or 3 that are ahead of Bronny. You look at USC, they have the combo guard commit in Isaiah Collier, who's a top 20 commit, who's a top 20 player in the country. They also have other guys. You look at Oregon, they're two guards in general that play are seniors and graduating. And Oregon's in an interesting spot. You know, they're kind of a mid-tier Pac-12 team this year with Nafali Dante, who, again, I believe has the dunk at this point, the dunk of the year. I mean, for a guy of his size to dunk like that was unbelievable. But I think when I think Pac-12, yeah, you've got your UCLA or USC, whatever, they're leaving. When I think Pac-12, it's Oregon. You've got
the face of the Pac-12 is Oregon.
Yeah, you've got Nike.
It doesn't even matter
uniforms.
for the best.
Nike, you've got those uniforms, the shoes. Look at that court that Oregon plays on. I mean, if I was a top recruit on basketball, Oregon's a school I would at least consider.
If I'm getting an offer from Oregon, it's going in my top 5 or whatever.
I mean, that court alone is, again, going back to Memphis, it's like playing on that blue tiger stripe court at Memphis. These schools that have like these uniforms and stuff, that's something kids care about these days, and I think it's something to take into consideration. And I just think that Oregon gives Bronny the best chance to play.
I agree. Great coach too in Dana Altman. He's an amazing coach.
Dana Altman's a fantastic coach, underrated coach in my opinion, actually, because I think he kind of gets overlooked because his program isn't always the greatest, but he consistently is a great coach. And I just think that at Bronny's point in his career, he's just looking for a place where he will play. He's going to be a one and done. He's LeBron's kid. And LeBron has already said wherever Bronny gets drafted, he's going. So you look at, I mean, if you're an NBA team, you have to at least not with a top pick, but if you have like middle to end of the first round, you got to at least consider Bronny because it means you're getting LeBron. And I think that is a commitment.
Yeah.
Like that's a consideration of a lot of teams. But
I agree.
Yeah, I think that overall in college basketball, NIL runs it. And
which is completely fine. I understand NIL. I have nothing wrong with it.
No.
But you could see the shift. These guys sign these deals and it determines what schools they go to.
But like you said about guys just getting all their stuff on highlights, you mentioned earlier about the fact that there's no back to the basket bigs. When I think the only back to the basket big you really think of these days in college basketball is Zach Edey.
Yeah, you got Edey, TJ Day, and Dickinson, and they're all Big Ten teams, and the Big Ten does not win in March.
Not recently.
But I'll give you this: Edey, player of the year front runner. TJ Edey is definitely in the conversation too. So,
yep. I think that.
I mean, the big thing with the player of the year now is the best player on one of the best teams. Purdue's the best team in college basketball right now, and Zach Edey is the best player in college basketball right now. You can talk about, you don't think he's talented. I mean, he's 7'4", but I do think there's some level of respect, especially when you think about how little he played last year. I mean, he was just not in shape, could not play big minutes in a college basketball game.
He averaged under 20 minutes a game.
That is now.
Yeah, I
And look how
completely agree.
different that is now. And now he has the endurance to play close to 30 minutes a game, if not more,
Yeah.
and be as dominant as ever. He's great passing out of double and triple teams, and it really takes the pressure off of Purdue's backcourt, which is what people thought was going to give them trouble the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at guys like Lawyer and Smith, and it forces teams to not really be able to just sit there and double Zach Edey the whole game, because then you're leaving these guys open on the perimeter, and
they can shoot.
Yeah, and they can shoot. Zach Edey, can't shoot. I don't think he's attempted a 3-pointer in his college career.
Doesn't have to.
He's a good free throw shooter, though.
He doesn't have to when you add. Debatable on good free throw shooter.
For in college, an average free throw percentage is like 80. So if you shoot like 65, 66, that's.
I mean, he's shooting. He's shooting like 71%.
I'll take that. I'll take that for my guy. That's
for a guy who's 7'5" and a guy who gets fouled as much as he does.
There's no doubt he definitely gets reffed differently.
I think
because we've never seen anything like him.
I think the fact that he's 7 foot, like as big as he is, and doesn't even shoot 65% from the field is a little concerning. I mean,
ton of shots.
I do want to say I watched that when they played Michigan State.
Yeah,
I
will say I have not watched much.
I watched that.
He took every shot.
I watched that whole game, and Michigan State. You could look at the box score and say, "Oh, but Edey gave him like 30 and like 16 or whatever."
Yeah.
Michigan State did an amazing job on him. They forced 15 misses from Edey or something around that number. It was very impressive, and that's what you got to do. That's why I think they're upset prone. They've had very close games within the Big Ten, but definitely, I think he's National Player of the Year. I think he's on the best team in basketball.
Yeah, it is his to lose. But I think that another guy you have to look at, who's arguably the most game-changing electric player in the country. And Noah, this is going to hurt you. I know you're a K-State fan. Big win over Kansas last week. But Jalen Wilson put up 38 against Kansas State, I think.
40. I think you gave 40. 30, I do want to say he is the most skilled player in the nation.
It wasn't. It was like 38.
Okay. Well, he's
basically 40.
Player.
Regardless.
I know they've lost a few lately, but you can't. I mean, Edey, the best stat-wise on the best team, but if you're 7'4", 7'5", I'd hope he's doing what he's doing. So I give all credit to Jalen Wilson.
Yeah,
he's the best. He's the most skilled player in the nation.
Yeah,
it's not.
I don't know what he. I don't know what he did against Baylor, but I know against
he gave more of the same.
25.
I know he put up 30 against TCU, 38 against K-State. But you look at before that, and it was. Which is, I think, the interesting thing is now he's starting to take over for Kansas, because prior to the
Kansas, I feel prior like to Kansas, the K-State game, other than Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick, I feel like they don't have a ton of scoring options.
Completely. Dajuan Harris is not a scorer.
He's a fantastic facilitator and defender, but you can legitimately play the guy in the lane. I mean, he is no threat to shoot, and this is why Kansas has lost these games. If it's not Jalen Wilson or Grady Dick, no one's scoring.
And I think the interesting thing about Grady Dick is the fact that he's a great scorer. He's a terrible defender.
He has the intangibles to be a good defender, but
he's just not.
Like 6'7", 6'8", and he's just not a good defender.
He's constantly in foul trouble. He fouled out of the K-State game, which was that was a complete momentum shift when Grady Dick fouled out.
Because it's so predictable where their points are coming from. Jalen Wilson's driving to the right.
He took every shot once Grady Dick fouled out.
Or taking a three.
Yeah.
And that's the best shot for Kansas is him every time. Yeah. Unless you get an open look off a pick and roll. I mean,
that just doesn't happen because they
Kansas
just give
them lack of depth, and they do not have a front court piece.
KJ Adams is good,
and we'll get into.
He played well against K-State, but he's not a reliable scorer like they had last year on that tournament team. I think KU is potentially upset prone.
I'll get into Kansas not having a front court a little later in the show, but I think we talked about TJD and Zach Edey, Jalen Wilson. I think a guy that, because he's on a interesting team that nobody really talks about in college basketball is Jalen Pickett.
He is
Plays old man basketball.
He is one of
And-
my favorite players in college basketball. And I'm an Illinois fan, so he destroyed Illinois. But I love the way he plays the game. I love it. He's like what 6'5", somewhere in there. He's not like
6'5",
big.
plays like he's 6'10". Just he
Yeah.
posts
He
anyone up.
Averages 17 and 7. Yeah.
2 steals.
Great
too.
all-around
2
player.
steals. I love Jalen Pickett. He
I
won't win
thi-
Player of the Year because his team's not very good.
Well,
They're not
I
bad,
mean,
to be
He's
honest. They're not
very
bad.
important to his team.
But
Penn State
he
could
is
get
the most
with
important.
the way
Even
off
even
that
if
team
they get
off the
even
bench.
if they get hot though, I mean,
no, but you look at the way that the
Purdue
Big Ten
could
plays
lose
every
out,
year.
and Zach Edey will.
Yeah, and
Rightfully
Zach
so,
Edey is the most
rightfully
dominant
so.
force, and you can pretty
Yeah.
much chalk it up that he's going to win that award.
And I want to mention Brandon Miller. He's the best freshman in the nation.
oh,
Best
absolutely.
player on one of
Top
the
10
best
pick.
teams in the nation. Top 10 pick, so-
Arguably the best team in the nation in
So
Alabama.
I do think
It's
that
them
he's
and- it's
another
them
guy
and
you can
Purdue.
mention in the
Yeah,
player
and
of
I
the year
think it's them and Purdue, and then there is like there's a distinct difference between Bama, Purdue, and then the rest of the field.
I think you could even throw Houston in there even after that
fluke
loss to Temple.
A fluke loss.
They did lose at
And I
home
mean, I watched
convincingly to
that
Bama
game.
earlier in the year.
Yeah, and teams that changes.
Yeah.
I mean, teams get better over the course of the year. Obviously, it's a great win for Bama to have on their resume, and Bama's a great team.
Yeah.
But I mean, things change over the course of the year. I mean, I watched Illinois look like a top 5 team in the nation. I mean,
In
for
Vegas.
first few
Yeah.
games of the year, beating UCLA in
They-
Vegas and then
they
beating
are clearly
Texas in
not,
Madison
yeah.
Square. I mean, and you can say that, but I mean, who knows? It's too early to be saying what teams are going to get hot. And
They do.
I mean, it's a long
They
season.
have the
And,
talent to be a top 5 team in the country.
yeah, and previously, and I think the Big Ten schedule also has been affecting some of these teams.
Yeah, it is a
Every
new
team in the
schedule,
Big
guys.
Ten-
Teams are playing a lot more games.
Big
in a
Ten's
lot
starting
less
to get in.
days.
On
Big,
2
Big
days.
Ten's had troubles with COVID lately, so that's another
Yeah,
consideration.
Northwestern.
Northwestern's had some real
Talk about
struggles.
scheduling issues. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
going to help it
Making
down the
worse, exactly.
stretch.
No, but I just think that overall, I think that, we're only in the middle of end of January now. We got basically a month left in the regular season.
A lot
And
can
We're
happen.
7 weeks away from Selection Sunday, so
Yeah, it was, what was it?
a couple of
No,
those weeks are tournament weeks, so that's very exciting.
I just think that going down the stretch, not even just in the Big Ten. I think the Pac-12 is going to be interesting. I think the ACC is going to be interesting. The Big East, which in college basketball, it's a Big Six.
Yeah.
It's not just a Power 5; it's a Power 6 because the Big East is consistently in there.
Yeah, the Big East is a gauntlet this year.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah.
God, they're turning into the
even
Big Ten.
teams
They're
at the
just
bottom-
beating each other.
Even teams at the bottom of that conference.
Look at
I mean, you look at
DePaul.
DePaul, and I love DePaul. Like, I like DePaul a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, that team's going, and Xavier comes and plays them, loses. I mean, DePaul's winning conference games, and that league looks deeper
Yeah.
top to bottom than it really has in recent years.
Yeah,
Other than
which is
Georgetown,
great, which is
anything
great
can
for
happen
college
any given day.
basketball.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Oh, Georgetown's
yeah.
horrible.
Oh, George, we watched them. We went to a DePaul game earlier in the year and
Yeah,
watched them
the
play
3 of us
Georgetown,
did, yeah.
and that was. They're just not a good basketball team. It's as simple as that.
They are
Patrick
a
Ewing.
bad basketball team.
Patrick Ewing is just
They're
he's not a good
dysfunctional.
coach.
Yeah.
He's just not a good coach. It's a dysfunctional program. You can tell the guys just don't know what they're doing on offense. And then we went to the Villanova game a couple weeks later, and I was like,
And Villanova is by no means special, but DePaul looked good in that game.
Cam Whitmore is just unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah,
Cam
dude,
Whitmore.
Cam Whitmore is an absolute dog.
But you look at Archie Diacono's brother, and
Great athlete, but he's got to shore up that 3.
yeah, Cam Whitmore does struggle to shoot consistently from deep, which at the NBA level is a problem. But kind of going along with you said we're 7 weeks away from March Madness. That kind of, we talk about Lenardi's bracketology every year. That's the big one that everybody looks at. And right now he's got Purdue is the overall number 1, which I think is the right selection. I think you've got the skilled guards around Edey to be that, to make a super deep tournament run. I do think that you look at a team like Kansas State, absolutely shocking performance.
The
You
turnaround
went
was
from
insane.
they were 14 and they went 9-20 2 years ago, 14 and 18 last year,
Yeah.
and then now they're
top 5 in the nation.
2 losses, top 5 team in the country. I mean, Jerome Tang, they were predicted to finish dead last in the Big 12 this year. Jerome Tang has just done an absolutely, I mean, that's a coach of the year candidate right there.
And I mean, those preseason,
the only coach of the year candidate that should be named.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of stuff that Purdue, but
Painter is an amazing coach, but the turnaround
and same with Nate Oates, but
it's not like
because
Purdue
K-State doesn't
have
the yeah. And that's the same thing with Bama. I mean, they've been a really solid program over the last few years.
Yeah.
But K-State, I mean, this is just out of nowhere with completely different guys.
I think
and we'll see what happens tonight against Iowa State and just see if they can
huge game.
stay on top of the Big 12.
ESPNU tonight
at 8.
I think that you look at a school that for coach of the year, the top 3, and I don't think that it's close. The top 3 are Matt Painter, Nate Oates, and Jerome Tang. And I don't really know who else you put in that.
I mean, Sean Miller deserves some credit at Xavier because they weren't ranked in the preseason and they're top.
No, but I think like 10, you look at what teams that are dominating, and I think it's those 3 consistently.
I do agree.
You going back to Purdue, I mean, what else is the Big Ten in March besides Purdue?
A mess.
Yeah,
literally, that's what they are. They're a mess.
I mean, you guys are the Big Ten guys, so I'll kind of leave this up to you two. I'm more of a SEC man myself, but
they don't win in March. The Big Ten hasn't won in March since the last champion was Michigan State in 2001 or something crazy like that. So it's definitely been a while. And this year, I feel like, I don't know why, but people will say that, oh, nothing's going to change in March because there's 10 teams in the middle of the Big Ten that are just beating each other up on a nightly basis. And that may
they're
be
going to send as many. They're going to send as many teams to the tournament.
They're sending 9 or 10 teams in the tournament again. They are.
Yeah, and this is my argument for the Big Ten every year: is they send 9 or 10 teams to the tournament every year, and by the end of the round of 32, there's 1 or 2 Big Ten teams left.
That's
and I
very
think
true.
I think that's everybody's argument for the Big Ten is, like you said, they cannot win in March because, and I think part of the reason that they can't win in March is the fact that they beat up on each other all year, and these teams are exhausted by the time they get to March.
I think one thing to also note, and I mean, it's so matchup based in March Madness. And personally, I think Illinois has gotten some really underseeded teams. I mean, you're talking about Chattanooga, which was highly regarded as the best mid-major, probably one of the most popular upset picks.
Yes. Loyola in the round of 32. That team was. You look at any advanced metric,
and that was a whole narrative. That was a whole narrative set up so you could have an Illinois versus Illinois type thing.
And it was
the whole Sister Jean on Sunday. Illinois had no chance in that game
because Loyola was a top 15 according to Net, according to Ken Pom, according to anyone you look at.
Yeah, all of these advanced metrics that they look to seed teams in the tournament thrown out the window just so they can have the Illinois Loyola potential match in the round of 32.
The Big Ten's a mess in conference play this year, but I still have hope because it is a different brand of basketball that the Big Ten's played in the last couple of years. It is not as big man centric. There is much better aging guard play, which wins in March. So I think the Big Ten could be a little bit better in March this year, contrary to popular belief because of what's going on in conference.
Yeah, and I think you do have to look a little deeper into it. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, these teams have very mid records, but I think it speaks to the depth of the conference. And the turnaround Northwestern's had this year just seemed to come out of nowhere. But those guards are getting older. Boo Buie, Chase Audige, Ty Berry. Yeah. These guys have another year of experience under their belts. And you obviously they're winning road games in the Big Ten, which I'll tell you, last
College
year and the
basketball's
years
fun this
before
year.
that did not happen. Yeah,
College
it's great. You
basketball's
never
fun
know
this
what
year.
can happen. I think that also Illinois. I mean,
Yeah.
you swear to God, you think they can beat Alabama and then they can beat Houston back-to-back days and then get
And then they'll
blown
lose
out
to
at home by
Georgetown.
Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most confusing thing, and it's hard as a
Inconsistency.
fan
Yeah.
to stay locked in and stay supporting this team because you never know. I mean, they look great. They win by 25 the games they're supposed to win on the road in the Big Ten, and then they come home and against
Get blown out
Indiana and
against
let
Indiana, yeah.
TJD scores 35.
And
on
I
them,
think
there
that
just
that's
seems to be
college.
no adjustments, and they're back
Yeah,
to the ISO
That's the
basketball
story
offense,
of
which
college
hurt them.
basketball this year is you'll get teams that'll go have a big game. Like Mizzou had a stretch of big games. And then
Started against Illinois.
Yeah. And look at them now. I mean, they just got blown out by like 20 against Bama at home.
And I mean, even going back early in the year, Illinois gets annihilated by Missouri and Penn State. And what do? They rip off a win against Wisconsin, Michigan State. I mean, you just
it's
I
college
do not
basketball.
know.
You never
it's
know
so
what's gonna
unpredictable.
happen.
And Illinois against Ohio State tonight, Illinois could win by 20 or they could lose by 50.
Yeah.
I legitimately have no idea how to feel about that game. They don't play close games.
There are some interesting games in college basketball tonight. You look at Kansas State, Iowa State, Illinois, Ohio State. You look at Kentucky, Vandy, which, Vandy has had some interesting games this year. Kentucky
got to win that to stay in the field.
Kentucky is hot right now, and it's just a question of can they stay hot? Can they win the games they're supposed to? And
if they get into March, they can be a threat. Any coach counts in March.
Just like anyone can. Anyone gets into the tournament, they can be a threat.
Right now, they're first four team out, but I think if they get in, they are a very dangerous team in March because, again, they have that experience. Coach Cal has been to March. And I think that after what happened in March last year against St. Peter's, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder.
I agree.
I would hope so.
But I think you look at that. I mean, potential second round matchup right now of Bama UNC, which if Baycott stays healthy, he's had some injury issues. If he stays healthy, I can't even say if Caleb Love, because Caleb Love is going to do Caleb Love and take 40-foot jump shots 6 times a game.
Is Caleb Love going to make the shots?
Yeah,
he's
it's
going to
not.
Take them. It is going to make them.
You've got the Virginia-Illinois rematch in the second round. That could be interesting. Right now, Kansas has a cakewalk, an absolute cakewalk.
Lenardi's bracketology, I mean, that's an easy Elite Eight appearance for me.
Yeah. And
UConn's the best team they would play.
I feel like every year it seems like Kansas gets a cakewalk in March Madness, and they don't play a good team.
So easy for them.
They don't play a good team till the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
And that's why they're consistently there every year.
And then you look at Illinois, who has to play Houston in the second round, but that's
Bama's got a tough region too. I mean, they're
ridiculous. Houston's preseason number 1, 5 seed last year. That's okay though.
You look at the mid-major sleepers. You've got FAU, Boise, New Mexico, UC Riverside. You've got
love FAU.
Charleston's. You've got some good mid-majors there, and I just think that we have to see how
those teams. Yeah, of those teams that you listed, those are the teams that are going to play Illinois in the first round. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
we'll come back.
We're getting FAU that will happen. FAU Illinois.
We'll have an episode on about it. We'll have our March Madness episode, and it'll be Illinois versus FAU in the first round of the tournament.
Yeah, and then if they win that one, they'll magically have to play New Mexico or something like that. And then K-State will have to play UC Riverside. It's just what happens to my teams. They get thrown in with these insanely underseeded teams. But
the thing that I don't know what I'm going to do is if Kentucky and Bama get put in the same region, I don't know what I do there. I mean, what do you do if Illinois? Well, obviously you guys will just root for Illinois, so I guess that's really not much of a.
I
would root for Illinois if they played Kansas State. I don't know if I can speak.
Well, I could
with Noah, but
I
just hope
fan get there.
Yeah. I think that March is going to be interesting, but
it's going to be great.
I really think that the last thing that I really want that I think we really have to talk about is our locks and underdogs of the week. So, for the NBA and college, my lock of the week actually is going to be UConn over Xavier. And I think that that's my lock of the week because I think that this is one of the first times in Big East play that Xavier is going to face legitimate top competition in the Big East. They have not faced another top team in the Big East yet this year. And I think that UConn is going to give them a test. And I just think that that is my lock of the week. Yeah, I think my underdog of the week is Saturday night in Lexington. I have Kentucky beating Kansas because, like we talked about earlier, like I said, I was going to come to is the fact that Kansas has no front court, and I think that Oscar Tshiebwe is going to take over that game, and that if Kentucky plays defense and they play through Oscar Tshiebwe, that Kentucky they've got the atmosphere at Rupp Arena, which is always electric. They will win that basketball game.
Kansas needs to win badly, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, and then
kind of just staying in college basketball.
Yeah.
I think my lock of the week is Providence against Butler. I mean, it seems like kind of a weak lock to pick, but I think Providence is really good, and I think Bryce Hopkins is the real deal, probably the front runner for Big East Player of the Year. Yeah. And I'm kind of going with a real underdog here for my underdog of the week, and it's Michigan against Purdue, because I do feel like that if Purdue is vulnerable, as much as I hate Hunter Dickinson, if there's a guy that can give Edey trouble in the Big Ten, and I hope they double him with someone.
Yeah.
But Hunter Dickinson's a great interior defender, and if someone can throw Edey off his game, Michigan is my. I hate Michigan, but
I think that as long as Hunter Dickinson stays off the podcast for the week, that they'll have a chance against Purdue. If he stops talking to Marty Mush and Jordan Bohannon, that maybe they'll do something.
Two of my least favorite people in the entire world.
Jordan Bohannon and Hunter Dickinson. But yeah, Lucas, so what do you got for locks and underdogs in college?
My lock is, I think, probably the biggest, easiest lock of all time, but we'll ease it into the podcast. First episode will go with an easy lock. Alabama over Mississippi State. Alabama is, if not the best team in the nation, second best team in the nation. They're going to win, most likely cover too by double digits.
What is the spread? Do you know what the spread in that game is?
I don't know. It's probably like 8, 9 maybe, because I think they're in Starkville. I'm not
road
sure.
Favorites too,
my dog, contradicting Peter, Xavier over UConn. Now, Xavier is a team that does not miss very many shots. Against DePaul, they missed a lot of shots, but I love their big men. I love Fremantle, and I love Nunge. I think they both can make shots when they need to. And I know that Sonogo's a tough matchup, but I think Xavier makes a lot of shots. They have good guard play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my
to clarify, I do just want to make it known that the locks and underdogs are picked by the spread, not who's ranked higher.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Because home court swings.
Oh, absolutely.
I think UConn was favored by 7.5.
UConn actually right now UConn's live spread is 7. Bama is minus 12.5.
Yeah, and Bama covers easily
on the road.
And Xavier.
No, Bama is at home on Wednesday.
Okay, all right. I was going to say
they'll win and they'll cover. I bet they can win by 20 if they need to. But I do think Xavier underdog. And I know the rankings seem a little odd, but it is UConn 7.5.
I know that we already did our locks and underdogs for college basketball, but I think an underdog going against the spread is K-State minus 5.5 tonight.
K-State minus 5.5.
Well, they're plus 5.5. Iowa State is minus 5.5. Yeah.
I feel like that's a decent line, to be completely honest.
I think K-State covers that.
K-State's good, and I think K-State can obviously win tonight, but Iowa State's not the easiest place to play.
No, that arena is electric. I mean, look at what
Baylor or Texas.
Texas went in there.
Very true.
Texas went in there and really struggled.
Yes.
But moving on to the NBA, my personal lock of the week is Dallas minus 7 against the Wizards tonight. I think that's a pretty easy lock to have.
Yeah.
I don't really I just don't really
Yeah.
see a scenario in which Dallas
especially with Porzingis banged up too, really hurts them.
Yeah, and going into Porzingis being banged up, my underdog of the week is Houston over Washington tomorrow night. I think that the fact that
You're really hating
Kristaps,
on Washington this week, Peter.
yeah, I'm just really not a fan of the Wizards. No, but I think Jalen Green's ability to like get to the paint without Kristaps there, I think really gives them a chance. And I
Only
think
thing
if
Jalen Green can do.
yeah, and I think that's why I'm going to take the Rockets as my underdog. The spread is not out for that game, but yeah, I just think that Jalen Green's ability to get to the paint without Kristaps. But no, obviously, lock of the week has to be Dallas. Like, no matter what happens, Dallas, there's no way they lose to Washington. And Dallas absolutely wins by Dallas covers that spread of -7 easily.
Yeah. So I think my NBA lock this week is the Clippers -5 against the Lakers.
I don't know, man. The Lakers got Rui Hachimura, so we'll see what happens there. Huge trade.
Huge.
They gave up
That
Kendrick
matters so
Nunn and
much
3
for the
second-round
landscape of the
picks.
NBA.
They gave up a 2028 second, a 2029 swap worst, and we don't know where they got this, but the Bulls 2023 second-round
It's
pick.
just a trade that doesn't matter.
It
just doesn't matter.
I mean,
It's a mediocre bench
and
player.
Rui's a talented player, but the Lakers need shooting.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm picking the Clippers.
And they need shooting, and they gave up Kendrick Nunn. Not saying
Lakers are a mess. Clippers cover -5. My underdog, it's the Celtics against the Heat. Heat were favored by 4.5.
Wow.
Doesn't feel like much of a
spread. I don't even care
because they're at home.
Spread.
The Celtics cover easily in that. That's crazy.
That's what I'm thinking. So I was surprised. I was surprised by that spread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, my NBA lock and dog, I'm going with 4 mediocre teams, so it's a little bit closer.
Other than Dallas, that's what I did. So
yeah. Well, so my lock is the Kings over the Raptors. The Raptors have been struggling lately. The Kings have been pretty good. I mean, I believe they're a top 4 seed in the West right now.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they're at home or not, but they will be locked. They are favored, and they're gonna light the beam if they are at home. So
light the beam.
King Magic stays alive. My dog is gonna be the Timberwolves over the Pelicans. The Pelicans have been playing very good basketball. I think they're third in the West. If they're definitely top 4.
You have Timberwolves in that game?
I have Timberwolves winning. Yeah, I think D'Angelo Russell coming off a big game. He scored a lot of points. I think they lost to the Rockets the other day.
Minnesota's +2, so that they should cover that.
Yeah, well, I'm taking. Yeah, I believe that they're Twin Towers down low.
Yeah.
With
the Twin Towers that are finally healthy.
Yeah, they're healthy. I feel like they're going to get back on track. Big win over the Pelicans.
Yeah. All right. I really think that we covered everything in this podcast. Yeah. So like and subscribe. And we'll have another episode out for you guys later this week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you later this week.